Poor sleep can increase your risk of stroke. It can increase your risk of heart attack. It increases obesity. We have to get our sleep dialed in. And there are some critical keys to understanding sleep that will provide you with the knowledge to have the best night's sleep of your life. So let's try to understand sleep and why the brain needs it and how the body uses it. The first thing to understand about sleep is that sleep is all about light. The more light you have in your life, the better you are going to be able to sleep and the better you're going to be able to function. Our brains operate by receiving light, whether that's from the sun or whether it's from artificial light. That light comes in and enters our eyes. It goes through the cornea, the outer surface of the eye. That's what gets reshaped with LASIK vision correction so that we can focus that light as it goes through the lens that oftentimes needs replaced due to cataracts, which can prevent light from coming into the brain. And then that light comes in and it hits the back portion of the eye called the retina. The retina is where we have rods and cones, things that help us see color and things that help us see at nighttime. That light is then sent down a neurological pathway through the ophthalmic nerve. That nerve comes back, and in fact, some of your vision crosses and goes to the other side of the brain, and some of it sticks to this side of the brain, where it's all interpreted in the very back, in the occipital lobe. That's right, we don't see anything with our eyes. Our eyes are just a conduit of light. Everything we see is right in the back of our head, in our occipital lobe. A portion of that signal gets sent to something called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, deep in the hypothalamus of the brain. That suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus of the brain functions kind of like a relay switch. It sends a signal to the pineal gland. And the pineal gland, when it comes to sleep, is the most important gland in the body for sleep. It is what secretes melatonin, our sleep hormone. Melatonin is very important. Melatonin, once it starts to get released, is something that helps us feel drowsy. It helps us feel like it's starting to get nighttime, like we should start to be getting ready for bed. And once we start to fall asleep, as our melatonin levels increase, it's what helps us get into a deeper sleep with a deeper night's rest. But what happens if we stay awake for too long? What if we're out late at night? Well, what happens is that can throw the signaling off and change the timing of our pineal gland releasing our melatonin. And if we're awake when it's dark outside, that leads to an increase in cortisol. The more cortisol that we have released, which is a stress hormone, gives us cravings late at night. It makes us feel snacky. It makes us feel like, well, if I'm at the movies at 9 p.m., I might as well get the big thing of popcorn. Throw some M&Ms in along with it. Because that increased cortisol, the stress hormone, then ends up leading to increased fat deposition. It also affects our metabolism. Increased cortisol can also lead to increased fatigue. So if we stay up too late at night and we begin battling our natural circadian rhythms that are triggered by the sun coming into our brain and releasing melatonin, then we lead to health consequences and health effects. The same thing could be happening if you're on your phone late at night in your bed for too long. If I keep my phone on late at night and I have the light coming from that screen into my eyes, it's making my brain think that it's still daylight outside. And if I get too much light at night, that means that I'm not releasing my melatonin. I don't release as much melatonin, and with my melatonin not being released, I have a delayed sleep onset. It takes me longer to fall asleep. My sleep quality is severely impacted. We toss, we turn, we never end up getting into the deep sleep because the rhythm's off. And then it leads to sleep loss. All of these things, when our circadian rhythm, the rhythm of our sleep, gets off, affects our health. It increases our stress when we don't sleep well. It slows down our metabolism when we don't sleep well. And not sleeping well increases inflammation in the body. And increased inflammation in the body can have some very detrimental effects. In fact, let's just look at some of the data around transitioning from permanent standard time to daylight savings time. When we pitch our biological clocks against our alarm clocks and see the collision that happens with our health. Inflammation does lead to poor sleep, but in all reality, the behavioral patterns that we have are typically the things that trigger our poor sleep. We talked about how decreased and delayed melatonin release can lead to inflammation. That also causes us to have increased cortisol levels. Those are the things that we want to keep in balance. Now, one of the things that happens about 2 days after the switch to or from daylight savings time and standard time is an increased amount of strokes. Now, this isn't some phenomenon that is just being made up. This is actually studied. Why are we still making our biological clocks fight against our alarm clocks for some artificial reason? Arizona doesn't do it. Hawaii doesn't do it. And studies have shown that individuals in those states around these same time frames have decreased strokes. Strokes increase after the switch, just like hospitalization rates for heart attacks and AFib increase. Let's talk about AFib. Let's say that your circadian rhythm gets off. You go to bed. You're not really getting the night's sleep that you need. You're trying to oxygenate, you've got some poor sleep, maybe you're even snoring a little bit. You're not getting as much oxygen into your lungs as you need. Your heart's constantly beating. Let's say your heart then goes into an irregular rhythm. Either the heart pauses and then begins beating again, or the heart beats too fast and then goes back into its normal rhythm. That's atrial fibrillation, an irregular rhythm of a portion of the heart. When the heart pauses, blood can stick together. When blood sticks together in the heart and the heart beats again, it can send that clot, the blood that's been stuck together, right up the blood vessels into your neck, into your brain, and cause you to have a stroke. That's what's called a cardioembolic stroke from atrial fibrillation. So not only does AFib increase and hospitalization rates for heart attacks and AFib increase after this artificial change between daylight savings time and standard time, there's also many other neurological conditions that have poor sleep triggers. If you're one of the hundreds of thousands of people that suffer from migraine headaches, you're probably very well aware of this. If you don't get a good night's sleep, if you're up for too long, if you have too many awakenings in the middle of the night, you can get a massive and severe migraine headache. Think of it as your car engine constantly being turned on and off, on and off, on and off, and never having the chance to just rest. It's a lot like working out your muscles constantly over and over and over again, taking a break for 20 minutes, then doing it again for a whole night. You would wake up tired and fatigued, and it happens the same way in your brain. This can trigger bad migraine attacks and migraine headaches, and this can last for days. In fact, one of the best treatments, natural treatments for headaches, is sleep. Quiet, dark, cool places to sleep and to close our eyes, to allow our brain the opportunity to re-equilibrate. Another disease that we need to talk about that poor sleep triggers is delirium. In patients with dementia, that's the hundreds and thousands of our mothers and fathers, our neighbors that have dementia. Poor sleep can trigger delirium. Delirium and dementia are different, but it's easy to understand the difference. Just stick with me for a second. In dementia, let's take Alzheimer's type dementia. You have a slow, cognitive, neurological decline. Memory is slipping, navigational abilities, ability to count money, ability to go shopping, ability to drive. All of those things slowly over the course of years starts to tail off. Vascular dementia. Vascular dementia is more like you have some memory loss, things go good until you have another stroke or another small stroke. And then you get a stepwise drop off. And then suddenly your loved one isn't functioning where they were before. and now they're down at a different level, and then they have another vascular insult to the brain. And so you get a stepwise drop with vascular dementia. In either one of these dementias, you have to think about the fact that you don't have as many neurons to start with in the middle of the illness. And if you get poor sleep in the middle of the illness, that can then trigger delirium. And delirium is the medical term for confusion. It's often called a waxing and waning mental status. It's where during the day, maybe from 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock, your loved one who has dementia seems like they're functioning well. Things are going good. They're able to talk to you. They're able to communicate. Then around 6 or 7 o'clock at night, they start to get very restless. They may be picking at things. They may not be making as much sense. You may have to talk to them over and over again to reinforce things. Poor sleep can trigger this delirium. In fact, the term that has been used for decades for delirium is something called sundowning. The name sundowning helps you remember that delirium is associated with poor sleep and a disruption of our circadian rhythms. As the sun is going down and we don't have as many neurons to respond to the melatonin to help us start getting prepared for sleep in our brains then become wired. The signals aren't quite making sense. And so we're thinking it's still daylight, even though we're starting to feel like we're drowsy. And in patients that have dementia, that's a really hard thing for their brains to focus and to move through. So poor sleep, in summary, leads to a delayed or decreased release of melatonin that can increase cortisol, increase inflammation, lead to stroke. For the days after we make this sleep transition from daylight savings time to standard time or standard time to daylight savings time, we see an increase in strokes, heart attack rates, AFib, all of that increases. And poor sleep also triggers in the general population migraines and delirium. So what can we do to get our sleep right? Let's talk about some things. First off, routine, routine, routine. I don't think I could stress this enough to you as a neurologist, as a brain doctor. Your brain thrives and survives on routine. So you need to get a good sleep routine and you need to stick with it. Stick with a good sleep routine. Dark mornings in life are worse than dark evenings. Remember this. We just went through the entire conversation about how important light is and bringing light into your life. And the more light you can get in the morning, the better your day's going to be and the better your sleep's going to be at the end of the day. The more natural light you can get in early in the morning, better day you're going to have, better night's rest you're going to have. Dark mornings in life are always worse than dark evenings. Good sleep habits. In order to have good sleep habits, you need to start with good daytime habits. Your daytime habits, if you can get them down, are going to lead you into good sleep habits. So make sure you've got some good daytime habits. We're going to talk about a couple of them. First thing you need to do is you need to make your sleep commitments. It may sound kind of funny at first, but if your goal is to have a really good night's rest, one that rejuvenates you, one that recovers you from a hard day, one that you can wake up feeling energized, then in order to meet that goal, you've got to make commitments. Your sleep commitments are more important than your sleep goal. If you don't keep your sleep commitments, you're never going to reach your goal and it won't matter in the end. So let's talk about some sleep commitments that you can make to yourself to give you the best night's rest ever. First off, you need to wake up consistently. Wake up at the same time every day if you can, weekends included. Wake up at the same time consistently, as much, as often, and as frequently as you can. Keep the routine. Remember, light first. Light first. You want to get that light into your eyes, into the back of your brain, trigger the suprachiasmatic nucleus to do its job with light, so that you can then trigger your circadian rhythms to work best. Light, first and foremost during the day, has been one of the best treatments for seasonal affective disorder, and we can talk about that in the future. Light first, light first. Once you're done getting the light in, or starting to let the light into your life, it's a great time to take a moment and pause and feel gratitude for the day. I'm not trying to get soft here. I'm really not. But gratitude and stress cannot exist in the same mind at the same time. So don't start your day off full of stress. Start it off with gratitude. You were just given another day. You filled it with light. Be grateful for what you've got. After you wake up consistently, after you get light in, after you feel gratitude for your day, this is an excellent time to exercise. Exercise in the morning will help get the blood flowing in a natural and normal physiological way, and it'll wake your brain up. This is a great time to shower. Some people shower at night, some people shower in the morning. Showering is a good thing to do in the morning. It can wake you up. We can talk about cold showers that can help you as well. You need to get ready for the day and brush your teeth. Brushing your teeth is one of the best things that you can do in the morning, not only to wake you up, but to generate good habits. In fact, poor oral hygiene has been correlated with an increased stroke risk. Poor oral hygiene has been increased with the amount of carotid plaques that build up in people's internal carotid arteries. And the more internal carotid artery plaque you have, the more likely you may be to have a stroke. So, wake up consistently, get the light in, feel gratitude, exercise, get ready for the day, brush your teeth, and then avoid a large meal, especially a large meal that's full of simple carbohydrates. Get rid of the cereal. You don't need to eat a big bowl of Trix early in the morning. Cereals, simple carbohydrates like that will end up leading to you having late morning sleepiness, late morning drowsiness. And so you don't want to be fighting against your body. The other thing that's important is to avoid caffeine. I hate to break it to you, but as a brain doctor, you don't need caffeine. You can get it completely out of your life. It'll be beneficial for you if you do. You don't need to rely upon caffeine to wake you up. You don't need to rely upon caffeine to help keep you awake late in the morning or late in the afternoon. With good and consistent sleep habits and hygiene, you're going to be able to avoid the caffeine. Let's get back to eating. Eating healthy throughout the rest of the day is going to be very important for you. The best concept I could try to relate to you is the fact that you just need to eat until you're not hungry anymore. Don't eat until you're full. Just eat until you're not hungry anymore. If you're constantly able to eat until you're not hungry anymore, then that's going to make it so that you don't have big fluctuations in blood sugar levels, blood glucose levels. Those things are all going to interact with cortisol. And in the end, they may make you take a late afternoon nap, which can then delay the time that you get to bed, which can mess up your melatonin release, mess up your circadian rhythm, and lead to poor sleep. So eat healthy throughout the day. Remember, one of the best things you can do to have good sleep habits is to start with good daytime habits. These are excellent daytime habits to help you prepare for a good night's rest. Next thing we need to talk about is water. Water, water. Stay hydrated throughout the day. If you stay hydrated throughout the day, you're going to stay awake. Water has a key role in every process in the body, especially in the brain. In fact, there is a part of the brain called the pontine micturition center. It's the part of the brain that triggers your feeling and your thought that you need to go use the bathroom. So water, water, water. Make sure you stay hydrated throughout the day. Along with water, water, and more water throughout the day, you need to avoid caffeine, especially after 3 p.m. There's no reason to put that stimulant into your body, especially a cognitive stimulant like caffeine, if you're trying to get your daytime routine down to have the best sleep routine that you can. If you can pull this one off, and this is a harder one to do, no food after 6 p.m. Let your body digest. Let it start its process of slowing things down and shutting things down. Get the food out of your system into the body the way that it needs to be. So if you can have no food after 6 p.m., that's good. Do that one if you can. It's a good daytime routine. It's okay to have a snack later on in the evenings. Don't make it simple carbs again. Try to avoid really high fatty food as a late night snack. We don't want to stimulate gallbladder release and things like that can then end up leading to some pain if you have some underlying issues. Start prepping for bed around 9 p.m. It's one of the most important things you can do. And don't forget to brush your teeth. We already covered why that's important. No cell phone use after 9:30 p.m. That's right. Somebody had to say it. It was me. the neurologist, the doctor who cares about the quality of your sleep. Get the light from your phone out of your hand, out of your eyes, and don't let it trigger the suprachiasmatic nucleus to mess around with your pineal gland and your circadian rhythm. Put the phone down. So make sure you don't have any cell phone use after 9:30. Instead, take that time to start doing some of the other things that we're going to talk about. Let's talk about your ideal room temperature. A lot of people talk about what the ideal temperature to sleep is. You need to remember that the ideal room temperature is going to be different than the temperature immediately around your body because you're going to be covered in blankets. So 60 to 72 degrees is about the ideal temperature to have the room for adults. It allows some variability depending on your personal preference. If there's babies that you're considering, that's 65 to 70 degrees. A little bit of a window that gives them a little bit more warmth at night. And then as we age and as we get a little bit older, we typically end up having to have the room a little bit warmer as we age. So that's okay. Make sure that that's taken into account. One thing that a lot of our patients talk about and that a lot of neurologists use to help them get a good night's sleep is a weighted blanket. For some reason, the weight ends up pushing on our chemoreceptors, on our sensory receptors, and makes us feel like things are all snuggled into place. Maybe it's something that happened from when we were babies and we were wrapped up really tight and we feel the weight of it on us. But a weighted blanket may help you in getting a good night's rest. The next part of this is perhaps one of the most important parts of you getting a good night's rest. You need to take a moment to pray, to meditate, and review the day. Whichever one of those things you want to do, it's very key that you do so. Why do we want to pray, meditate, and review the day? Because that allows us to resolve any issues of the day. If you can resolve any of the issues of the day before you fall asleep, you're going to have a much better night's rest. I'm talking arguments with your spouse. I'm talking fights with your children, strife that you have with your coworkers at work, projects that you're planning out. You need to put those to bed in your mind because you have to slow your mind down. And this takes effort. This can take work. But with good practice, you can slow your brain down, you can resolve the issues of the day, and then you can breathe and you can relax. You should lay down in your bed and you should breathe in and out and you should feel your body start to sink into your bed. You should picture all of the muscles in your face relaxing. You should picture your body relaxing. You should feel yourself being pulled down into the bed. And as you feel that pulling sensation through your mind, you can close your eyes. Sometimes that's the perfect time to start counting sheep, if you're into that kind of thing. So not only breathe and not only relax, but make sure that you have a dark room that is alarm-free. If you do get interrupted sleep, if you have some alarms that go off, if you've got a newborn, if the sirens from the police go off, it's okay. Don't let it disturb your routine. Recognize what's happened, take care of the situation, get back in bed, relax, and get the best night's sleep ever. I'm Dr. Justin Chandler, a neurovascular neurohospitalist, a brain doctor. We hope you enjoyed this video. Don't miss out on our next one, the kissing bug, Chagas disease.